Hi everybody, welcome back to my studio. I am not showing my face today. We're not going to do an intro to this video because this is just kind of like a little impromptu session that I wanted to do. I'm in the middle of cleaning my house, so I decide, hey, I'm going to take a break. Middle of the holiday season, and I'm sure we could all use a break. So what I have here are um, my cards that I created a few years ago, and it's an artist's oracle deck. And I love these cards. It was kind of like this whole inspired thing that led me to create these. And uh, what I wanted to do was pull out, there are different sections of cards, and I believe I have a flip through here on YouTube. You can actually look at all the cards, but there are cards that are action cards, and these are prompts that you can use um, when you feel stuck. Really, this is just to kind of help you get back into a creative flow. So what I wanted to do today was something like this. And the action is create an abstract background with paint or ink or whatever medium you want to use. You let it dry and then use white acrylic to carve out an image. So that is what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And since I don't typically use a warmer palette, I think that's what I want to do today. And I grabbed red and orange and a yellow. And I also have some gold, and I believe this is a sepia or a burnt umber. Yeah, it's a sepia. So you can just watch me, and I'll probably put some music on, and I'll explain things if I feel like it needs explaining. But, here we go. I'm going to start by making a mess. So I'm going to just randomly throw some ink down. I'm going to grab my spray bottle, which I have right here, and I'm just going to start making a big mess on my paper. So here we go. I am going to wet my paper first, just in random areas. This paper that I'm using is just my Canson Watercolor book. It's relatively inexpensive, but it holds up pretty good. It's great paper to do these kinds of projects. And sometimes when, especially for me, like painting for commissions or gifts, things like that, where you have to be, you're painting something very specific, it's really nice to take a break from all of that and do something that is just completely abstract like this. And I'm going to grab some paper towels because this is really messy. And I'm going to tilt my paper up here and just let these colors run. And I get pretty heavy-handed with the water. And this is something that anybody can do. I mean, this is even a fun project to do if you want to get your kids in on this. And I'm going to drop in a few extra dark areas. And usually what I try to do, because I love bright colors so much, I always try to add a neutral in there somewhere. It just helps kind of ground everything, I think. And you can see that I am getting some leaking here. Ah, I think the trick when you're doing um, something like this is you don't want to completely lose all of your colors and let everything blend in together, because you have the potential to make, a big muddy mess. So even though I'm tipping my page, I still want there to be a little bit of separation between the colors. And I don't know why this doesn't work. I'm going to drop in a little bit of gold. Let's see what that does. It's interesting how this is what this is doing here. So as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that I want to add in another color. Maybe something on the cool side. And I didn't realize when I grabbed this ink here, this is kind of a neon color, and I'm not really feeling that. So it's interesting because the neon color is acting a little bit like a resist. So I have this turquoise green, and we're going to see what happens with this. And I want to be careful because these are opposite each other on the color wheel. So if there's anything that will make mud, it will be orange and turquoise together. So I want to be really careful about not letting them blend too much. So it looks like something strange happened with my gold here. It's like I've got clumps. That's okay. So I will take my salt that I have here. And you can create a lot of different textures, not only by using salt, but you can take your paper towel and you can lay your paper towel down in areas like this, just to add some different textures to it. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to put my ink away, and I'm going to break out my white acrylic. I will probably dry this with the dryer as best I can and then brush off the salt very carefully. And then I'm going to start carving out something here. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do, but yeah, it'll be an adventure. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and this is dry. I did use my heat gun to dry this, so I don't get quite the effects that I want with the salt. I still wanted texture in here, and for what we're doing, it's absolutely fine. But just like a little side note, if you do use salt, it's better to let it dry on its own. You'll get better effects than if you use a heat gun. And oftentimes when you use a heat gun, it won't dry completely underneath. And when you go to wipe it away, it will just smear. So it's better to let your salt dry naturally. But for this, like I said, totally okay. So I have some acrylic paint, and this is high viscosity. It's really thick, and it's super inexpensive. It's like a student grade acrylic. You could use craft paint for this. Craft paint tends to be a little bit thinner, so you may have to put on 2 coats. The reason I like this thick stuff is that I can go in and the coverage is really great. So now for this, you're probably thinking, okay, now what? You know, I've got this abstract mess here on my paper, and you can either just have like a basic shape in mind, or if you happen to see something, and that's oftentimes what I'll do, you can flip your paper around, and maybe as you're looking at it, you see something that you want to emphasize, and you can basically paint around it and leave that shape as it is. And like I said, if you can't think of anything, you can always go with an organic shape like leaves. And I think I'm going to just do something that's very organic, because these I think would make really pretty flowers. And so I'm going to start carving away everything else and see what I come up with. And I will probably speed this up a little bit. And there's really no rhyme or reason other than to just kind of relax and play. So here we go. Oh, and I do want to say, you know, if you have to start off with a little bit more of a watered down paint, yeah, you can totally do that, or just go straight in with the thick paint. This brush is a Jane Davenport brush, which I absolutely love. And then I have some other little cheapy brushes here. This is a Royal and Langucle. These are inexpensive craft brushes. I'm not using anything special. Also, if you want to pencil something in to paint around it, yeah, you can do that too. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of go for it and see what happens. All right, so I think I am going to let this dry. And while this is drying, I think I'm going to do another one. Now, when you're doing this, don't get too like wrapped up in, oh, it doesn't look good, or this is for play and this is for relaxation. And sometimes I think we get this society we live in. You know, it's always about producing something and it's got to be perfect. And actually, no, it doesn't, because nobody has to see this ever. And this is for our enjoyment and really not anybody else's. So I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to put it to the side and let it dry. And when it dries, I'm going to go back in with some ink. And the fun thing about doing exercises like this, and often what I found is, as I'm painting, it like opens up my idea center or my intuition. You get into this flow and all of a sudden you start thinking, oh, you know, I'd like to try this color, or maybe I could try carving out, you know, a certain object. It's almost like a catalyst for more creativity, which is what I love. And if you're stuck, like I said, if you just haven't painted in a while and you don't know what to do, do something like this. And just have fun. That's like really the whole idea behind this. So I'm going to do some cooler colors this time, and the same process. I'm going to speed this one up, and so you don't have to watch the whole messy ink splatter thing. Something real quick too, if you're using ink like I used, and I'll make sure that I put everything in the description box, this ink, once it's dry, it does not move, meaning if I try to reactivate it with water, the color is not going to go anywhere. Now, I have done plenty of these with watercolor, and it will reactivate once you put water or something wet back on top of it. And that can be a totally different look. It looks really cool when it picks up with the paint and mixes in. Maybe I'll do that for this next one. I'll use watercolor instead, just so you can see the difference. So here we go. Okay, so you can see what I ended up with here, and I did a little vase. I didn't even really, I didn't paint anything. I just carved this out. And the reason I did this is when I put the salt down here and I brushed it away, to me it looked like little flowers. So I wanted to take advantage of that. And I thought I could create like a little bouquet of flowers in a vase. And I even left the indication of like a little shadow here. Now, if you get to this point and you really want to start emphasizing things, go back in with your watercolor and you can start pulling out shapes. So if I, let's say, wanted to make this a little bit more defined in here, I could just go in with some darker color and start dropping in these areas of dark. And I wouldn't try to really paint anything as much as just keep these shapes abstract, because that's what this is. And if you start really going in here and defining things, I think it takes away from like the overall freshness of the piece. And I think, at least for myself, I have a tendency to get too wrapped up in the details, or I start getting picky, and then I'm not having fun anymore. So this is an easy way to just pick out some shadow shapes if you want to define areas a little bit more. I do want to add in some stems and maybe a little rim here, a little shadow under the rim of the vase, and maybe something like a water line. That's always helpful. So I'm going to do that in a pink, I think, the same pink that I used. And I'll just create a little water line here. And then one, here. And I'm just going to wet my brush and soften out this edge here. And I'll do the same thing here. This is just about play. So I'm going to grab some of this purple that I use. These are all Daniel Smith paints that I have, and I'm going to darken this base down here just so that it reads like it's a jar, and maybe darken that shadow a little bit. And once that's dry, I'll add in a couple of stems, and I want to define this edge here a little bit so that this reads like it's a flower here that's hanging over. And I did put some acrylic over here, so the watercolor will just kind of sit right on top of it. Anyway, you could fuss with this all day. At least I know I could. And this is just about play, play, play. And I think that's close enough to being dry. So I'm going to go in with some of this purple and add a few indications of some stems. And it seems like no matter what I paint, there's always a little bit of realism in it. I guess I want it to make sense. So and for fun, I can always get my acrylic back out, and I can add a couple of, little highlights. I would wait until the paint is totally dry first. And I could always add a couple of little centers to the flowers too. So I think you get the idea. And I'm going to go back to my other one and I'll add some pen work, and then I think we're going to call it a day. Okay, so there you have it. I could spend all day penning in all sorts of different little flowers. And I think this is really cool. This is like a little abstract flowers situation we've got going on. And then this one we did in watercolors. And you could also go back in with a pen with this one for sure. And this is just about having fun. So I hope that you'll try this and take a break. You could definitely do this, like I said, with your kids. I think they would really enjoy that. Everybody enjoys it. I know I do. It's super meditative and super relaxing. So have a good time, and I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I will be back probably with a lot more content coming this new year. And I've got a lot of ideas and a lot of tutorials that I want to bring you. So I just want to say thanks for being here again. And anything that you saw here, I'll be sure to leave in the description box, including these cards and all of the supplies that I used. So take care. I'll see you next time.